Good day. I am Dr.K Gireesh, physician, neurophysician, and neurosurgeon. This is the RNA Series 36. RNA is nothing but random questions in neurology and neurosurgery with answers given by Dr.K Gireesh, and that's myself. This is to benefit the practitioners of neuroscience and the medical field for a lifelong learning and also for public awareness. Now, what is the question that I am addressing in this series is, what is Baddley model of memory? It has a central executive, it has a phonological basis, the matter, as well as a visual spatial sketch pad and an episodic buffer. So these are the four components, and let us see those. The central executive acts as the manager of the working memory. It does not store information but is responsible for directing attention, coordinating the other components, and managing cognitive tasks like problem solving and decision making. It allocates resources to the various subsystems based on the task demands and suppresses irrelevant information. The central executive is often associated with functions like switching attention, multitasking, and managing conflicting information. Now, what is the anatomical basis of central executive? The central executive functions largely is attributed to the prefrontal cortex, particularly the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Studies using fMRI and lesion analysis shows that prefrontal cortex, especially the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, plays a critical role in the executive functions like attention control, decision making, and the task switching. The central executive's role in regulating and coordinating the working memory subsystems and focusing attention aligns with the prefrontal cortex role in the high order of the cognitive process. The central executive, I said. The next is the phonological loop, which again forms the Baddley's loop of memory. The phonological loop is responsible for temporally holding and processing verbal and auditory information. It consists of a phonological store and an articulatory control process. The phonological store, often referred to as the inner ear, it passively holds the speech-based information for a few seconds. Articulatory control process, known as the inner voice, this component actively rehearses and refreshes information in the phonological store, allowing it to remain in the working memory for a longer time. The phonological lobe is essential for language tasks such as understanding sentences or remembering a phone number. Now, what is the anatomical basis of the phonological loop? You find it is in the left hemisphere, the Broca's area, in the left inferior frontal gyrus for the articulatory rehearsal processes, supramarginal gyrus and primary auditory cortex in the left parietal and temporal lobes for the phonological store, which holds the auditory information. So supramarginal gyrus and the primary auditory cortex holds the information, and the articulatory rehearsal process is done in the Broca's area. Neuroimaging studies, including PET and fMRI, shows activation in the Broca's areas during the verbal rehearsal tasks. The supramarginal gyrus is active during tasks requiring temporary storage of verbal information. The phonological loop's function in retaining and rehearsing verbal information fits with these brain regions, as they are essential for speech production, comprehension, and auditory memory. So, central executive phonological loop has been said. The third arm of the Baddley's loop of memory is the visual spatial sketch pad. It is also called the inner eye. Temporally holds and processes the visual and spatial information. It helps us visualize scenes, track objects in space, and manipulate visual information, making it crucial for tasks like navigating or understanding visual patterns. This component is used for tasks involving visual imagery, spatial orientation, and the mental rotation of objects. The anatomical basis of this, the visual spatial sketch pad, is associated with regions in the right hemisphere, especially the parieto-occipital cortex for visual processing, the intraparietal sulcus and occipital lobe for the spatial processing. fMRI studies show that visual imagery and spatial memory tasks activate the right parietal and occipital areas. The right intraparietal sulcus is involved in the spatial attention and the processing spatial relationships. The visual spatial sketchpad's function in holding the visual and spatial information aligns with these regions, roles in the visual and the spatial perception and memory. The fourth arm is the episodic buffer, which has been added in 2000 by Baddley. And the episodic buffer, it acts as a backup storage system, capable of integrating information from the phonological loop as well as from the visual spatial sketchpad and the long-term memory. It creates a unified representation or episodes by combining information from various sources, allowing us to experience a cohesive sense of events or scenes. Now, the anatomical base. The episodic buffer does not have a single well-defined anatomical locus, as it integrates information across various domains. However, it is thought to involve the hippocampus and the medial temporal lobe for integrating and encoding episodic memories. Parietal and prefrontal cortex areas, particularly the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the VMPFC, which may help bind information from different sources. The supporting evidence is the hippocampus and surrounding medial temporal structures are crucial for integrating different types of information and storing complex episodic memories. Additionally, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex is involved in binding and integrating memories and sensory input as seen in the neuroimaging studies. The episodic buffer's integration of multimodal information aligns with the hippocampal and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex involvement in memory binding and episodic memory. So the key aspects of these models are the dual task performance and the multi-component structure. The dual task moment, the Baddley and his original experiment showed that people could perform two tasks simultaneously if they relied on different subsystems. Example of verbal task and a visual task, supporting the idea of multiple components. This multi-component design makes Baddley model one of the most influential frameworks for understanding the working memory, suggesting that it is not a single storage system, but rather a set of coordinated systems that manage different types of information. So in brief, working memory is the system responsible for holding and manipulating information in mind over short duration and is often considered a more dynamic form of short memory or a short-term memory. It allows us to manipulate information such as solving math problems or remembering the steps in a task. Working memory involves multiple components: the phonological loop for verbal information, the visual spatial sketchpad for visual information that support cognitive tasks. Baddley proposed this model with components for visual and the verbal information, the phonological as well as the visual spatial sketchpad. And this was published especially in the Trends in Cognitive Sciences, published in 1974 by Baddley and H. The episodic buffer was later added to the Baddley model of the system for integrating information across modalities. And that, of course, has again been published in Trends in Cognitive Neurosciences in the year 2000 by Baddley et al. So, therefore, that's in brief the answer to the question on what is or briefly describe the Baddley's the memory model. Thank you very much.